We are back on MorningLine. Our guest this morning is News Channel 5 legal analyst Nick Leonardo, taking your calls on some of the high-profile cases. Several questions still with regard to the Doolin case, which I figured we'd get them. And let's go next to Wayne. Wayne, good morning. Hi, Wayne.
Hey, Van.
Hey.
Yes, sir. Sir, in regards, a while ago, a man was talking about that other guy's safety now that he's going to be in jail.
Yeah.
In all honesty, we know this dude done this, and I'm really not too concerned about this guy's safety no more. Personally, I'm all about putting him in general population until we do hear something happen about him, because to tell you the truth, he's just going to be a burden on the taxpayers now. And really, they said that they didn't go for the death sentence because they didn't want to give him a chance to go through all the legal stuff and go for the appeals. Now, when we catch somebody and we know that this guy is it, in whatever case it is, we're spending way too much money on the taxpayer taking care of these people that we know is guilty. And it's one thing if we do not know it's questionable and it's possible, and later on it may turn up that you know that this person was wrongly convicted. And I can understand dragging that out and giving them a chance. But when you know that you've got this guy, why in the world is this system putting up with this?
Yeah, you'd have to address the system because, and how we know this, and we've done cases before where there may be questions in our minds about the guilt or innocence, and the jury has to come back with a decision. In this one, thanks to science, okay, thanks to science. For me, unless you want to come up with a conspiracy that someone planted evidence, which is baloney, that didn't happen in this case, there can be no other explanation about how Gabby Doolin's blood got on Timothy Madden's underwear. End of story, right there. I know they had other evidence. That, for me, enough. He did it, period. So there's no question. To his point, again, there's no system where you're like, well, this one's definitive, but that one's not, so we'll do this one. I mean, you can't. You got to treat them all the same, don't you?
You got to treat them all the same, and you have to protect the integrity of the criminal justice system, as I previously discussed. But to Wayne's point, when it comes to the cost that society pays, as far as taxpayers to incarcerate people, I mean, I think we're seeing a shift in America generally, and I know we're seeing it here in Tennessee to nonviolent offenders and trying to rehabilitate drug offenders, for example. Yep. We have drug courts and the like that are highly successful, and a lot of times once we can get them in drug court and they can get through that program and they come out the backside and they become productive tax-paying members of society. And so I think we're looking at incarceration a little bit differently. I know that Governor Bill Lee, our new governor, I think I'm expecting to see some good things out of his administration as far as alternatives to incarceration for our nonviolent offenders and our drug offenders, and that right there would save taxpayers some money, and it also would increase the tax base because a lot of these folks come out and end up getting good jobs and paying taxes.
That's a great point. Sheriff Darren Hall is a big fan of this. Listen, there's no question in my mind. In society these days, so many people are so angry, just lock them up, and there's no question that should be reserved for people like Tim Madden. And you know what? Our taxpayer dollars are going to have to support him all the time. But look, I'm sick and tired, folks, of my tax dollars paying for these nonviolent offenders because we're locking. You pay for it. It's crazy. I don't want them released till they reoffend, but what you said makes perfect sense. When we keep building more prisons and locking up more people, I don't want to pay for it. I'm sick of paying for these folks.
Well, I mean, I want my tax dollars to go to incarcerate people just like Mr. Madden, not to incarcerate some kid that's got $200 worth of marijuana.
That, frankly, in this day and age is absurd. And I don't think that's happening much anymore. Locking someone up for a few joints is simply stupid. All right, let's go next to Ronnie. Ronnie, good morning. Hi, Ronnie.
Good morning.
Hey, what's on your mind?
I got two questions. My first question is, why let the taxpayers pay for the people in prison or jail? Let the parents or the family members pay for each person.
Well, now that's not really fair. I mean, think about it. Think about if one of your relatives, Ronnie, someone that you never dreamed would do something like this, and you're a good man, killed someone, okay? And then all of a sudden they lock him up and they come to you. Ronnie, you know what? She's your relative, so you're going to have to pay for her time behind bars. That's not fair. You had nothing to do with it. You never dreamed she would do it, and now they're coming to you and saying you have to pay to lock her up. That's simply, you would not want to do that. Well, don't tell me you would.
But there are jail fees, Ronnie, that are associated with people having to go to jail. So,
but the family's not paying for it.
Family is not paying for it. But if he is declared indigent, which he is, then we are paying him as the taxpayers.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, Ronnie, but if you see my point, I mean, you should not have to pay for it if you had nothing to do with it just because you're related to this person.
And my next question, they need to give all of them into single units. That way, they, if they're in jail, put them in single units. That way they can't meet nobody, they can't talk to nobody or nothing.
You mean isolation, and sometimes that happens. I wonder if Madden initially will be in isolation. Now, the Department of Corrections, whether it's Tennessee or Kentucky, I mean, they try to do what they can. I mean, everyone thinks they're going to go in there and these other inmates are going to go and kill him. Now, here's 2 reasons why that's not going to happen. One, and it could, I suppose. One, the Department of Corrections is going to do everything they can to prevent that. They don't want, he's serving his time. They're not supposed to allow it to become a Thunderdome. And then two, these inmates that are behind bars, unless they're serving life in prison on death row, they're not going to want another murder charge for killing Timothy Madden. Some of these guys may eventually get out, and what, you think they're just lining up to kill this guy? That's not going to happen. I think, though, it'll be more subtle. The subtle ways. Not necessarily that he'll be hurt, but he's going to be at the lower rung and he's going to be bullied behind bars. That's what I think is going to happen.
Well, and they have a duty to try to protect these inmates because they don't want to be sued. I mean, obviously, if you're, where Bill Cosby is being housed, say for example,
right.
That's a high-profile inmate. If something happens to that guy, you're going to be sued, and they're going to, it's going to cost you a lot of money
right.
From either the state or the local municipality. So they try to keep them safe as best as they can. But if he was on death row in Tennessee, then he would have his own cell and there wouldn't be a whole lot of contact with other inmates.
Are you truly firmly of the belief that it's better in general pop than on death row? Because I know I've seen some documentaries where there was actually an inmate that purposely committed a crime behind bars because he wanted to go to death row, because he knew they'd never really execute him. And in death row, you get a cell to yourself, you get certain access to other things that the other inmates don't, and which is a twisted way of looking at things. But he wanted to be on death row, and he wasn't crazy. It made sense for the way the system was set up in that state. Yeah,
but I mean, I think one thing, being in a 6x6 cell, 23 hours of the day, and everything you do is by yourself. I think that has a huge impact on your psyche over a long period of time. I think most people would tell you that they would rather be in a general population, so you can at least interact with other people, because otherwise you're just interacting with cinder blocks by yourself. I mean, that could really drive you crazy, and and a lot of people out there would think that who cares, But I think that you find in this case especially too that may have been why he pled guilty, was because being incarcerated for the rest of his life in a different set of circumstances is much better than being incarcerated on death row, because there would be the ability to interact with other individuals.
Gotcha. Let's see. We've got another call that just came in from Tiffany. Tiffany, good morning. Hi, Tiffany.
Hello. I wanted to talk about the Zach Adams case. I heard that he might be getting another trial. Because they won the TBI box that case, Holly Bowman. Because they won the TBI box that case.
Did they?
I've always thought that the boy woman, the guy who went to Florida and killed himself, that's who I thought really killed her.
Okay, let's talk about it. She's talking about the other case, one we did gavel to gavel, the Holly Bobo trial. Zach Adams was convicted and serving a life sentence. Again, there was a plea deal after he was convicted, kind of a plea arrangement where they, instead of seeking the death penalty, and I think the Bobo family was kind of thinking the same way the Doolin family is. They didn't want to go through all those appeals. He's serving life in prison. Now, you have said on more than one occasion that based on our observation in that he may have some reasonable substance to an appeal of his conviction. Do you still feel that way?
Well, the best I can recall, I do feel that way. I mean, the Court of Appeals, that's where the conviction is. You have a 3-tier appellate process in the state of Tennessee. If you're convicted like that at trial, then you get to go all the way up to the Tennessee State Supreme Court if they'll take your case. And then you've got your post-conviction, and you always have your habeas corpus. But in this context, right now, the Court of Appeals is looking over what the trial court did. They're just looking at the transcript and what has occurred. And anytime there was an objection, then that could be a basis for appeal. And I think that we had a lot of evidence that came in that may have been maybe inappropriate under 404B, which is a rule of evidence.
Well, I just remember you nudging me and saying, ooh, I can't believe that got in. Ooh, I don't know about this, And,
and the court may say it's harmless error. I mean, as a trial judge, Creed McKinley did a great job in that trial. And to his credit,
it was a hard trial to try.
Well, and what people don't realize is that a judge like him in that particular part of Tennessee, he's hearing a death penalty case today, and tomorrow he may be doing a divorce. Okay, and in Nashville we have criminal judges that solely hear criminal matters, and he did a great job. But there was a lot of evidence and a ton of evidence that came in, and even though you can't always get it right as the trial judge, I think he got the majority of it right. But sometimes people blurt things out and things come in, and and even if it was an error, the Court of Appeals could find it's a harmless error and still not be a basis to overturn the conviction. But again, I do believe that the state of Tennessee is taking it very seriously, because the other individual who really was a state star witness,
Jason Autry,
they're not letting him out of jail until the conviction is affirmed. But I would say that on all the gavel-to-gavel trials we've done together, that was the most fascinating, because we had no idea, as opposed to like Emmanuel Sampson, we had no idea what happened to this young lady until we got to trial.
That's exactly right. And I'll say this, you're wondering about the delays. I know that Jennifer Thompson, the attorney for Zach Adams, was waiting for the transcript of the trial. That's, where they, and that way she can go back over exactly what was said and find the spots where she wants to bring up on appeal. That will be filed, and then the appellate court will look at it, and it may not be until sometime next year that we hear what the appellate court will do, or even she'll have a hearing before then.
Well, and with all the technology that we have, you would think that we would come a long way with our court reporters, right? But there's a court reporter in there, and a stenographer that takes down every single thing that is said during that trial, and then they will have to prepare a transcript. And of course, we cannot afford for a computer to make a mistake. You see how Siri sometimes can make mistakes in what you say, right? So she has to go through that and type that transcript, because that is what the Court of Appeals will consider, and only consider, is the transcript of those proceedings. There would be no new evidence, no new testimony or anything like that, and each side would get about 10 or 20 minutes to argue their case.
For a trial like that, which is longer than a week, I mean, that's a lot of time. You just wonder, why does it take so long to transcribe? Well, it's like I said, they're backloaded, and it takes a while. But after that's done, that's where Jennifer Thompson will look at it and see if, now the big question is with her too, and who knows where she was looking. I mean, she's going to appeal, but I mean, did she catch the same things you did?
Well, and I don't think that she did. I mean, I think sometimes when you're up there as a lawyer, I know when you're up there as a lawyer, you're so busy thinking about your next question, you're so busy anticipating what's going on, that you really don't pay as close of attention as maybe another lawyer in the courtroom who's sitting here, maybe
saying, "Oh, there you go,"
and writing it down. And of course, the luxury that Ms. Thompson has is that when we cover these things gavel to gavel, all the lawyers in Tennessee who care to watch can call her up and say, "Hey, I think this is a basis for appeal. That's a basis for appeal." So the folks that are fortunate enough to have their trials covered, get that luxury of having all the lawyers watching.
That's an interesting point. I hadn't thought of that. Listen, we'll take a break on that note. When we come back, our final segment, as we talk more legal cases and take more calls with Nick Leonardo. We'll be right back.